What happens when a law enforcement officer vanishes without a trace in the most surveilled zone in the country? In 1995, Border Patrol Agent Rachel Prescott went missing during a routine patrol. No struggle, no call. For help, just silence. For 9 years, her file gathered dust until a Homeland Security helicopter spotted something buried in the desert that would blow the case wide open before we step into this web of corruption and cover-up like this video. And subscribe to the channel, because the truth is never lost, just waiting to be uncovered. The last patrol. It was June 17th. 1995 Agent Rachel Prescott had been on assignment for just a few weeks. A quiet, capable officer new to Sector J. She was working a solo patrol near Loma Ala, an area known for its rough terrain and frequent smuggling traffic. Her last radio check-in came at 6:42 p.m. Unit 4207, reporting vehicle inspection at Culvert 73 south of Checkpoint Charlie. Then nothing, no follow-up, no distress signal, just silence. Her assigned Unit A. Green Chevy Suburban was never found. The official record labeled her AWOL. Within 48 hours, no search was organized. A resignation letter was sent. Her family case closed, or so they thought. Discovery in the dust flashed forward. A 2004 A surveillance chopper from Homeland Security was scanning borderlands ravaged by seasonal flooding when the pilot spotted something metallic just beyond a collapsed gully, half buried in silt and brushed. The outline of a vehicle shimmered under the dust. A ghosted emblem, barely legible, read U.S. Border Patrol. The vehicle code 4207. It was Rachel's missing unit. Within hours, the site was cordoned off. DHS boots hit the ground, and one of them belonged to an investigator named Dana Reich, who had once served in the same sector as Rachel. Dana didn't volunteer for the case. She was called when they opened the Suburban. Dust spilled out like ash from a tomb in the rear. Blood stains, no signs of animal activity, no body, just a cold clinical scene like someone had erased the middle of a story. Inside the glove box, they found her incident notebook. The name barely visible Prescott. Are the last date June 17th. 1995. The keys were still in the ignition. The radio mic snapped and frayed her government-issued sidearm. 3 rounds. Missing. Dana looked at it all and knew immediately this wasn't a desert accident. This was a crime scene. A chain of silence. Dana pulled every record she could find. Rachel had been reassigned off her usual patrol route that day the change came from. A supervisor named Calvin Sanders, a quiet man who kept himself her logs, showed an odd deeder south toward a corridor known for heavy unregistered smuggling activity. But no one had asked why an old agent named Westbrook remembered Rachel. She didn't drink, didn't gossip, got sent out solo too soon. Then she vanished when Dana pressed. He admitted there wasn't a search. They said she ran. We move on official records. Tampered radio logs. Destroyed in a heat failure shift. Notes misfiled. And then Donna found something worse. A misfiled civilian report buried behind a tire theft complaint from '96. A rancher named Hector Galvin had seen Rachel's Border Patrol SUV roll past his fence just after sundown, followed by a black unmarked SUV with no plates. It waited for her to pass, then followed. His report had never been logged. The supervisor he spoke to, Calvin Sanders, Part 2, a badge in the dirt, digging through the dead files. After finding Rachel Prescott's patrol vehicle buried in the desert, Agent Dana Reich wasn't just uncovering evidence. She was unearthing an entire forgotten history. She requested access to the 1995 incident archive at DHS headquarters. Most of the physical files were lost in transition during department merges, but one box marked miscellaneous personnel held something chilling, a sealed manila envelope, no markings, no index number inside. A badge, Rachel's, still caked in red desert clay. Why would her badge be in storage and not with the remains if she were dead, and why hadn't her family ever been given it? The resignation letter that wasn't in Rachel's personnel file was a single-page resignation letter dated June 18th, 1995, the day after she disappeared. But it wasn't her handwriting. Dana had once seen Rachel's report's clean cursive-type margins. The sloppy, misspelled rush the signature was forged worse. Still, 2 names appeared in the clearance line: Supervisor Calvin Sanders and Special Liaison Richard Mendes, an internal affairs contact who wasn't listed in any formal DHS structure. After 1999, Mendes had vanished to a hidden tape while searching the old Suburban before it was hauled off. A junior agent found something wedged beneath the rear seat, a micro cassette labeled only June 15th. When Donna rushed it to a tech unit, the recording, heavily degraded, played in bursts. If anyone finds this Sanders is dirty, not just drugs, people, children, they're not smugglers there. Cargo, a pause. Then a woman's voice, shaky but strong. They're staging the West Culverts, he knows. I saw they'll pin it on me. The tape hissed out Rachel had been investigating something much bigger than stolen goods or illegal crossings. A coded notebook back at the lab. Dana flipped through Rachel's patrol notebook. It wasn't just incident reports. Every few pages were symbols, numbers, street names, but offset in spacing. And in color, it was a cipher with the help of a retired code specialist. Dana cracked the pattern. CS meets off-grid, Thursday, 4 p.m. shipment, not narcotics, young male, female. The entries tracked over 5 weeks, quiet meetings, late night drops, black SUVs, no lights, always outside surveillance. Coverage. Rachel had uncovered a human trafficking ring, and her supervisor, Calvin Sanders, was involved. The handler appears. Donna put in a request for an interview with Sanders, but he had resigned in 1996 and hadn't been seen since. No known address, no federal retirement record, not even a death certificate. It was like someone had wiped him off the map, but a hit came through a private database, a contractor license filed in Arizona under a new name, Clint Sawyer, photo attached. It was Sanders, older, thinner, but definitely him. He was alive, and he'd been hiding in plain sight. Part 3, the man with 2 names, a house in Yuma. It took 3 days for Agent Dana Wright to drive to Yuma, Arizona. The address linked to Clint Sawyer was a 1-story stucco home on the outskirts of town, quiet, sun-bleached, guarded only by a security camera tucked under the roofline. Dana parked a block away, no warrant, no backup, just Rachel's badge in her jacket pocket, and the recording burned into her mind. She walked up the path and knocked a long pause, and the door creaked open. A man standing there was older, late 60s, sunspot hands. But Dana knew his face. Mr. Sawyer. She said. He blinked. "You've got the wrong house." "No," she said, holding up the badge. "I have the right one." He froze and stepped aside. Inside the past, the house smelled of cedar, and dust photos lined the walls, none recent. A clock ticked in quiet. "I'm not who you think I am." He said. "You were Calvin Sanders, Border Patrol, Sector J195. Dana replied. He didn't deny it. "I'm not anymore." He whispered. Dana sat at the kitchen table, dropped Rachel's badge in front of him, and placed a printed still of the micro-cassette waveform. Beside it, she knew she documented everything. And then she disappeared. Sanders. Clint shut his eyes. "I didn't kill her." Dana raised an eyebrow. "But you were there." He nodded slowly. Then finally he began to talk. The night Rachel disappeared, she was young, sharp, too sharp. He said, "Noticed things others ignored. A shipment that didn't match the manifest, a sensor that triggered a no-go zone. Then she followed and found the wrong people." Dana leaned forward. "Who they weren't smugglers. They were contractors, federal black budget, I don't know what agency. They came through under training. Exercises used our checkpoints, but with shadow clearance. What were they moving?" His hands trembled. "Children from the interior, not from Mexico." Donna went cold. She filed a report. I told her to erase it. Said I'd cover it. Next thing I knew, she was reassigned that night. "I didn't do it. They did a confession without redemption." "You didn't stop them?" Dana said. "No." He admitted. "I disappeared, took retirement under a false name. They paid me to go away." He handed her an envelope. Inside were photos, grainy surveillance stills from the 90s, black SUVs, military crates, armed men in desert gear, and Rachel watching from her Jolene with binoculars. "This one," he said, pointing to a man in tactical gear with no insignia, "was in charge. Everyone called him Howard. That wasn't his name." Dana took the envelope, hands shaking. "If I go public with this, they'll deny everything Sanders said. They'll say," Rachel snapped, "that I'm a ghost, but maybe the badge deserves it." Dana left without another word. The evidence vault that night. She delivered the contents to a private investigator and uploaded copies to 2 separate cloud servers. She also filed a classified internal memo. Prescott cold case, open reinstatement. Requested the memo disappeared from the system within 24 hours. So did the waveform analysis. Her security clearance was flagged for audit, and the micro-cassette went missing. But she had already made 5 copies and mailed one to Rachel's son, part for the whistle, and the war room. Rachel's son Speaks' name was Matthew Prescott. He was just 14 when his mother disappeared in 1995, told she had resigned, told she didn't want to be found. Now, nearly 2 decades later, he sat in front of a microphone for the first time, holding a micro-cassette in his palm, sent anonymously. But he knew who it came from, and he knew whose voice was on it, his mother's. "I used to dream that she got out." He said that she walked away and started over, but when I heard that tape, he looked down. I knew she died trying to protect something or someone. The Senate hearing that never happened. Donna had submitted her findings through official DHS channels, expecting a hearing and inquiry, even a press release. Instead, the chain of command when dark emails bounced back. She received a formal notice, insufficient evidence, to reopen the Prescott file. That's when a name surfaced in her inbox. No message, no subject line. Just 3 words: find Howard's logs, a shadow inside. DHS a week later, a Homeland Security analyst named Gabe. No last name, no badge, ID contacted Dana. Through an encrypted app, he didn't say where he worked, but he knew everything you were right. They scrubbed the files. Howard isn't a name, it's a clearance designation. It stands for High Order West Asset Relocation Division, a Black Ops program masked as inter-agency training. But it was never about training. What was it moving unregistered minors, mostly teens, some from juvenile facilities, some weren't even in the system. Dana's stomach turned Rachel Prescott. Intercepted a movement zone in June 95. Her logs pinged a conflict with protected route. That's when she got flagged. Internal order coded Jurun journalists, rogues, uncontrolled narratives. What happened to her? They didn't intend to kill her, just scare her. But something went wrong. The detail panicked. They buried it. And they buried her. Donna felt like the room was spinning. How do you know all this? Because I watched it happen, and I've been waiting 9 years for someone to dig her up the digital. Footprint with Gabs helped Dana track down what few digital ghosts remain. Satellite images from June 1995, never published, unclassified transport logs with time gaps. 3 contractors listed under the same initials, HWD, all pointed to a hidden compound just over the Arizona border, active from 1993-1998, decommissioned and bulldozed after a Senate oversight audit in 2000. But not before hundreds of undocumented movements passed through, and one of them on June 17th, 1995 showed. A convoy rerouting through Sector J, the internal threat memo. Then came the leak that cracked everything open. Gabe sent Dana a redacted PDF stamped internal threat classified. Eyes only inside was a single sentence: Agent Prescott has breached corridor integrity solution pending flag for non-alignment. It was a kill order, sanitized cold, and approved Part 5, going loud. The decision to speak. Agent Dana Reich sat alone in her car outside a media studio in El Paso. On the seat beside her, a folder labeled Prescott. Inside, redacted documents, Gabs, encrypted messages, the microcassette transcript, and a timeline of Rachel's final week. She tried going through channels. She tried internal memos. She tried to play by the rules. Now it was time to break them. The broadcast at 7:03 p.m. Dana appeared live on national television via an independent investigative program hosted by former federal analyst Marianne Yates. Dana didn't use euphemisms. She named names. She described the vehicle. She played the degraded audio from Rachel's microcassette. Then she said the words that have been hanging in the air since Part 1 of the story. Agent Rachel Prescott was murdered not by smugglers, not by accident, but by people working under the veil of federal protection. Her death was sanctioned because she saw what they were doing, and she refused to stay silent. The interview went viral by morning. It had 12 million views. The pushback begins. The next day, Dana's home was broken into. No electronics taken, only files. She was placed on administrative leave, cited for unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. Her clearance revoked, her badge suspended, but the broadcast had already ignited a fire. Capitol Hill React Senator Eli Navarro of New Mexico issued a formal request for an oversight hearing. He was joined by 2 others from the Homeland Security Committee. A preliminary docket was open titled Reevaluation of Cold Case Rachel Prescott. An archive facility was a subpoenaed. Gab's identity was shielded under a federal informant program. Public interest surged. Hashtags trended. Justice for Rachel Prescott. Files she didn't run. But behind the scenes, pressure built. An anonymous threat was left on Dana's voicemail. You're making noise, you want to end up like her. The missing witness, one person, could change everything. Hector Galvin, the rancher who had first reported seeing Rachel's SUV followed by the unmarked vehicle. Dana tried to contact him, but he was gone. Neighbors said he moved suddenly, left his farm, left everything. No forwarding address, no trace, just an empty property and rumors. Dana checked the title. It had been purchased quietly by a private equity group out of Virginia. The letter, then a package, arrived at her lawyer's office. No return address. Inside, a photo of Rachel from 1995 taken on her last day in uniform. A folded note and an old silver pin from a border patrol hat. The note read, I never forgot her, what she did, where she stood. She didn't just try to stop them. She gave us time to run. Signed, only J.R. Dana. Had no idea who J.R. was, but someone out there still remembered, still watching, and still believed Rachel Prescott deserved the truth. Part 6, Beneath the Compound. The desert reveals 6 weeks after Dana's televised statement. Under mounting public pressure, Homeland Security authorized a site excavation in the Arizona desert, a decommissioned compound, once listed as a remote logistics facility. But to locals, it had always been Something else, no signs, no address, just armed patrols and vehicles that never bore markings. The operation began at dawn. By noon, they had cracked open a section of the compound floor, and what they found wasn't listed on any blueprints. The sublevel, a hidden stairwell, led to a subterranean tunnel system, cinder block, walls, no ventilation, no cell signal, and inside, metal bunk beds, restraint fixtures, empty oxygen tanks. The rooms were sterile, nor windows like cells in a far room behind a rusted steel door was a single clipboard chained to a hook on the wall. On it, rows of entries: transfer approved, manifest 5B14, miners intercept freeway 71, hold for RM, do not process until Howard clears, and one line circled in red: Prescott log, corridor sweep flag for interference, clean immediately. The records they couldn't erase as investigators worked. They recovered backup drives stored in lead-lined cases buried behind the foundation, encrypted but not destroyed. Within hours, digital analysts broke open the first partition. What they saw shocked even seasoned agents: video logs of transport convoys, silent black, and white time-stamped still photos of people chained inside box trucks, manifests listing names, ages, and cryptic notes like suitable or excess, dozens of names, hundreds of faces, no one over the age of 17. And then one file stood out. It was dated June 17th, 1995. The file was labeled the Prescott Engagement Redirect. Inside, a voice recording of Rachel confronting a masked man. A scuffle then. Static, her last words: "This isn't your land, these aren't your children." Then silence. The man called Howard, though never seen on camera. Multiple logs referred to HWD. L01, a handler with top-tier clearance. Gabe confirmed the designation. Howard. He never used a real name. Gabe said he spoke through others, but everyone followed his orders. Prescott got too close. He authorized the hit. But there was one last shock in the final drive. Beneath all the redacted files lay a folder simply marked Junior. The mysterious signer of the letter Dana had received inside a full report written in 1997, detailed confessional, an internal whistleblower, recounting everything: how miners were trafficked, undercover border enforcement, how false checkpoints rerouted transports, how Rachel Prescott discovered one of the shipment routes and tried to stop it. The author had filed it with Internal Affairs under a pseudonym, but the document had never been seen by Congress, never leaked, the press never acted on until now. The unthinkable one last log entry: close the file, final status: Prescott neutralized site, restructured transport, ridded all assets, silenced or relocated, no trace remains. But they were wrong. Rachel's voice remained, her badge remained, her truth remained. Part 7. The name they tried to erase. A memorial of truth. 3 months after the Arizona compound was uncovered, something extraordinary happened in Loma Alta, not far from where Rachel Prescott made her final radio call. A small memorial appeared overnight. Just a wooden cross, a name burned into grain, our Prescott below. And she didn't disappear. She was erased. No organization claimed credit, no press release, but by weeks, and it became a shrine. Border agents left patches, families left flowers, and Matthew Prescott, Rachel's son, left his mother's badge, now recovered and clean, resting at the base of the cross. Dana returns, though still under federal investigation. Dana Reich visited the memorial quietly. She stood beside Matthew in the morning heat, looking out over the desert. "I didn't think anyone would believe this." He said, "I didn't need everyone." Dana replied, "Just one." Then she reached into her bag and handed him a manila folder. Inside, the complete unredacted file of the whistleblower Junior. Matthew opened the first page. It started with, "To whomever finds this Rachel, try to stop if she died. Doing the right thing. Don't let her name disappear like mine." Below the signature, one line was scrolled in ink: "Junior has James Ramirez, agent ID 92845, Sector J 9495, another. Ghost no longer silent. Capital Hill again. This time the hearing couldn't be buried. The Arizona facility had become a symbol." Photos of the sublevel rooms were released. The public names from the transport logs were matched with missing person cases across 5 states. Whistleblowers came forward, 2 more ex-agents, and a contractor who had maintained the compound. And finally, a bipartisan panel convened a full inquiry. At its center, the Rachel Prescott Act, a bill mandating federal transparency reviews of all domestic logistical compounds with black budget classification. The bill passed with overwhelming support. Howard's vanishing trail. And yet one figure remained missing: the man known only as Howard. He was never seen, never photographed. The digital forensics traced encrypted communications linked to his handler ID to a now defunct private firm registered offshore. 3 aliases were found, one of them tied to overseas defense contracts. The trail ran cold, but the search hadn't stopped, and Gabe now officially protected under Whistleblower laws made one promise. We'll find him. Prescott gave us the map. We just have to follow it. Matthew's voice on the anniversary of his mother's disappearance. Matthew gave a speech in front of the Border Patrol Training Academy in Artesia, New Mexico. It wasn't long, but it didn't need to be. My mother didn't run. She didn't resign. She was betrayed by a system that feared what she stood for more than what she found, but she stood anyway. And now we do two-part. Her voice still echoes the box in the attic. It was nearly a year after Rachel Prescott's name had been cleared when Matthew received a phone call from a woman named Ella Nina Hardin, archivist at the Prescott County Historical Society. We found something. She said inside a donated box marked Border History 1990s, tucked beneath training manuals and faded patches, was a small handheld tape recorder on it, a single label RP, last entry 6.69T5 a day, before Rachel disappeared. The final message, the audio, was staticky, but clear enough. If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it back. Her voice was calm, steady, not panic. There's something happening out here, something wrong. They're using us, our badges, our trucks, to move people like boxes, young ones. I try to report it, but they warn me the ones with no names, the ones in black SUVs. She paused, the sound of wind. Fill the gap. I don't know who to trust, so I'm leaving this in the one place they won't check history. If someone ever finds to tell my son I love him and tell the truth, even if it's not safe. Especially, then click silence. Matthew held the recorder in his hands, tears in his eyes. He later said it wasn't just her voice, it was her spine, her courage. She didn't just die doing the right thing, she died because she refused to do the wrong thing. The full circle of the tape was authenticated and entered into congressional record as part of the final hearing. It was played in full before the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. When it ended, the room was silent. Then came a standing ovation, not for the politicians, but for Rachel. A name carved in stone. Months later, a bronze statue was unveiled in LMA altar at the site where her vehicle was found. The plaque reads, Rachel Prescott, U.S. Border Patrol, Agent 1969-1995. She didn't walk away. She walked straight into the truth and stood there. Matthew was there standing next to Dana. So was Gabe and dozens of officers past and present who once wore the same uniform she did. And finally, a name that once gathered dust in a drawer now gathered honor under the desert sun. If Rachel's story moved you, if it made you think about what justice really costs, like this video, and subscribe to our channel. We tell the stories that were almost lost. We speak for the ones they try to silence, because the truth always echoes, even if it takes 9 years to hear.